all my fantasy football friends out there. Welcome to the Multiple First Dynasty Football channel here on YouTube. This is Tony Stoll, Stosh X, coming to you with the breakdown of our League of Record draft that we just finished up here a few days ago. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Greg, the Velociraptor. How are you today, man?
Man, I am excited. The fantasy season is here. We've got 2 weeks of preseason under our belt. We've got the big third game coming up next. We've got uh, our League of Record all finished, and all my legacy redraft league drafts, the live drafts, the 90-second per
Oh,
pick
yeah.
drafts.
Yeah.
Like that little 2 week window is the next 2 weekends after this, and then all of a sudden we're into week one and it's a sprint to the finish line.
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. I got my first paid vacation of my life from a job. I'm taking it the first week of the season here, like the first week of September, and I'm stoked for it. I'm stoked for the start of the season. Got drafts, redrafts, legacy leagues, all the goodies coming up. I think my oldest legacy league is like 10 years now, 9 years old, and that one's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for it. Yeah, we finished up our League of Record draft, and we're going to be talking about that here in a little bit. That was a fun draft time, though, man. It was always good drafting with you. Boy, it really picked up the pace on the second half, man. That was so slow in the middle rounds. We were doing like a round a day for like rounds 5, 6, 7, and then after we got through like round 12, we really banged it out. So good job, everybody, finishing that up.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a lot of trade movement, and then people get to where everybody's got their own list and nobody wants to spend 4 hours negotiating trades over these. My tight end 4 and your wide receiver 7. It's quick.
Absolutely. All right, so preseason week 2 is just shaking out. We got a lot of new developments. You got injuries flying. We got these positional battles kind of breaking down. We're learning more and more of the teams as we enter the season, how these depth charts are going to be. So some of the interesting news here is we saw Jordan Love start a game for the Green Bay Packers. I want to talk about that today a little bit. Looked okay. I don't even want to say he looked really good. I think the media says he looks great. The game I watched seemed average to me. I liked his athleticism. I liked him running around. He was making guys miss. You could see the strong arm was on display. He had his eyes downfield. He made a really nice throw to Dobbs down the sideline. But like there were some inaccuracies and some really questionable things he did as well. But ultimately, like okay day from Jordan Love. Did you watch him at all?
I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of Jordan Love yet, but I'll take your word for it. So he's obviously a guy who, the ceiling is at the end of this season, you've got this is the long-term quarterback. Maybe they redo the deal or extend the deal they already did with him, right? And all of a sudden he's a third, fourth round startup pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then the floor is, he's
on a
bad,
one-year deal and he's just out.
pick,
Yeah.
they draft somebody,
Yep.
right, or whatever, right? So the floor is you have nothing at the end of this year. Davis Mills, right? That's like
That's the floor. Yeah.
So for him to look competent is, I think, a positive sign. I've got some shares. I have no real heavy commitment either way, but I just think if your local market is overselling the upside, then you sell, and if your local market is overselling the risk, then like you buy some upside.
He's right in that middle territory now. We saw some free agents sign. Some of these veteran running backs starting to fall into place finally. The biggest name of which, Dalvin Cook, signs with the New York Jets, joins Aaron Rodgers, and Breece Hall is now worth nothing whatsoever. He's completely
absolutely. Hey, so check for a dynasty buy window on Breece Hall. Now we are coming into redraft season. I think his redraft ADP decline here is appropriate, right? I think maybe we've been underselling the risk for his 2023 season from that injury last year. I think shout out to Jordan McNamara over on Twitter. because I'm cribbing this from him, but like just the gap that we as a community have had between Breece Hall and Javonte Williams value based on the injuries last season is too big.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's mostly Hall not taking a big enough hit.
No, he didn't. People love that second year running back. Then it's like after that, the bottom always falls out, and you start getting into the third, fourth plus year. It's crazy. With like any news at all, like we saw Jonathan Taylor drop into the third round of our draft that we did. It's just while that turmoil was happening, and now he's starting to go back up again because he's coming back. So it's interesting.
But in Dynasty, I think you are checking for a buy window on Breece Hall.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In redraft, I kind of think there's nothing wrong with taking a pass on this backfield entirely.
Who do you rather have in redraft? Cook, yeah?
I'd rather have Hall.
You think? Okay.
I'd rather have Hall.
Well, there you go. I think I'd rather have Cook, so it's interesting.
Who's more likely to win me a league by being really great later in the season in the playoff weeks? That's some, like, I'd probably rather have Cook at.
I just want whoever's cheaper.
I don't know. Yeah, like whoever's cheaper.
Whoever's cheaper one is. That's
but, like,
fine.
I really don't want to. I really don't want to mess with this backfield a whole lot.
Yeah.
I also want to say here, in the realm of like trash running backs with a chance to win your league, like way down the road.
Yes, sir.
It's not hard for me to tell a story where either Michael Carter or Zonovan Knight is like the 20 opportunity a game running back in Arizona in November. Right? Like,
yeah, because they like cut him and then he signs there.
One of these two guys because they can't keep they can't keep Hall, Cook, Izzy, Carter, and Knight. Like that's not a viable roster construction.
You can't have all those backs active.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think one of Carter or Knight ends up not on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that guy could end up being a really intriguing young cheap option for some team that has an injury or has a thin backfield right now.
And Knight might be on your waiver wire in your dynasty league. Abanikanda might be hitting the waiver wire. Carter might be hit. Like these guys might be getting cut because of a Cook signing, and they're probably worth a roster spot for
and most of your guys.
most of your 12, 14 bench leagues. Absolutely.
Right.
What else we got on the news here?
I snagged Zonovan Knight in the 28th round, like right after the Dalvin Cook signing. To me, I'm like, and the hope is that he's the one who gets cut.
This time of year is so scary, man. It's so tough because I wish I had 25 bench spots in every league I played in, and you got to make these choices of like, do I want Aiden O'Connell or do I want this UFA running back? I don't know. Both of them could be pretty good, and it's tough, man. And you're always gonna have a second thought, and you're always gonna look back at the histories of these guys. I love looking back at the histories of players and seeing like, oh yeah, this dude in my league over here, he cut this player, a month before I picked him up, and then he broke out. It's like a James Robinson or I don't even know who's been some UFA guys like the Robert Tonyan a few years ago had a tight end 4 season. He was coming off the waiver wire.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Gardner Minshew might have hit your waiver wire.
But yeah, that's a good segue. So we have seen some good UFA running backs having some big preseason so far. The Emmanuel Wilson for the Packers, he jumps right out to me from watching some of that game. He turned the corner on his one breakaway play and showed some like elite speed, and he had the size to back that up. I'm interested in this player. I'm making room on rosters to put Emmanuel Wilson on there, and the same is true for Eli Dotson of the Chargers. He didn't display that same athleticism to me, but he just had a big night, and it can't be ignored when you're talking about a really unsettled situation behind Austin Eckler. Eli Dotson of the Chargers is who I'm talking about.
I'm very interested in taking cheap shots at whoever has a shot to be the Austin Eckler partner.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say handcuff, because I do think Austin Eckler gets a partner who you can at least consider, let's say, flexing in the bye weeks, just even when Eckler is healthy, right?
Yep.
So I kind of think Josh Kelly is the guy I'm most interested in rostering at cost there. But I think Eli Dotson is in the conversation. And also with Wilson and Dotson, I'm very interested in looking at the usage in week 3. I'm not probably adding either of them yet, but I'm very interested in looking at the usage in week 3.
Yeah.
if Wilson becomes the clarified 3 there, I'd be very interested.
Yeah, I'm trying to be out ahead of that, but yeah, that's what you're
You
looking
do
for.
have
It's pretty nice.
Lou Nichols is out there too.
Mm.
He hasn't played in the first 2 weeks, but is expected to play week 3. Right, he was a 7th-round rookie, so there's another name there.
Oh yeah.
Eli Dotson. Again, like I want to see what the pecking order shakes out at, like how the usage looks in week 3 between Kelly, Spiller, Dotson. If he's the running back 4, I'm not real interested, but I do see that there. A running back I'm very interested in is Rico Dowdle.
Rico Dowdle, yeah.
So Rico Dowdle, to me, it is not hard to tell the story where Tony Pollard re-injures that ankle, misses 8 weeks, including your fantasy playoff weeks, and Rico Dowdle finds a way to be a guy who was a league winner, right? Because he was the running back 5 in wild card week and the running back 8 in championship week, just on volume, and you paid nothing for him, right? And so like now is the time when I want to go put the depth chart listed running back 2 behind a starting running back coming back from injury who has never had a bell cow role. Like I want to put that guy on my roster for free right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely encourage taking shots on him. I've been picking him up in the other, I forget who the other backs are now in this backfield, but it was so hard to see past Pollard. But yeah, I like Rico as an ad. Lightly Chill picking up in the 26th round of this draft. Could be the man.
Yeah. So the other guys there, you got Deuce Vaughn. Who really looks like a gadget piece to me. Like he does not look like the injury away guy.
Who's the other? Wasn't there like another UFA guy?
Malik Davis was out there.
Yeah.
The buzz on him is not great. And then the other name there is Rojo. And to me, maybe that's the name that overshadows Dowdle. Like maybe they're wanting Rico Dowdle to be the 2 while Tony Pollard is healthy. But like, what if Tony Pollard missed a month? Who's really going to get the load? And I Rojo's got that 2-game suspension for PEDs up front.
Yeah.
But we have seen him be a functional running back in this league.
No, it's probably Dowdle, just from talking through it here with you right now. So I'm rising on him as we speak.
So, yeah, and watch ambiguous backfields out there, right? Like another name that I have in an ambiguous backfield here is Damian Harris has been missing some time. Is it possible Latavius Murray has a fall into the end zone 8 to 10 times season?
Oh, absolutely it is. Latavius Murray, fantasy god for the last 7 years. Love this guy.
Right. So watch these ambiguous backup jobs. Ambiguous backup jobs. Right now, that is crucial. Do you have another one for us?
Yeah, I got another hitter for you. So we're seeing the a lot of noise coming out in preseason. Some guys are having big games, kind of like the running backs I'm talking about, but we're seeing it at the receiver position as well. And we're seeing consistent talk of these 2 undersized receivers, smaller dudes. Calvin Austin, 2nd-year receiver for the Steelers, and Mr. Nathaniel Dell, Tank Dell, of the Houston Texans, who's 5'8", and they're both making a lot of noise, both having some big time buzz, big time preseasons. They look like they're going to be starters for their respective teams' slots. Is this smoke or fire with these guys? Do we care about either of them? Where you at?
Yeah, I am. I have a lot of exposure to Tank Dell.
5'10". Yeah, I have a bunch of them too. We were picking him a lot because he was a 2nd-round pick for the Texans. 3rd.
He was a high 3rd round.
High 3rd, yeah.
70 something, right? Which, and then you could get him at the 3, like the back half 3rd, and occasionally at that 401, 402, 403
rookie draft
area, right? So, at those values, I was very much in, and I'm glad I have some. I'm not paying the rising price for him.
Yeah. Do we have him in our League of Record team? I think we do.
Let's have a look.
I'm digressing. But Calvin Austin, what do we think about him too?
I'm in at price being free.
Yeah, we do. Price being free, absolutely.
I think there's like I am on team. There's nothing left of Allen Robinson, right?
No,
so if you're there, then there is a very good chance for him to be a starting slot, and then you like run the possibility that they move on from, let's say they move on from Deontay Johnson next year, right? Like there's chance to create longer term value out of Calvin Austin. Maybe not a lot of longer term value, but like some longer term value out of free. So I like that where you have some room.
Yeah, I like it. If you could get these guys off your wire, or you paid that really low rookie price to get them. I usually sell players like this when they hit like a second round rookie future worth of value. Like Darnell Mooney is the first guy that comes to mind who I was really enjoying as a free asset. I had him rostered heavily. Once he hit about a value of being worth about a future second, I shipped him away for that pretty much everywhere. And that's when he hit the wall and started coming back down. So that's about what you're looking for with some of these players. I think these dudes we're talking about, Calvin Austin, Deuce Vaughn, Tank Dell, that's what I'm looking to do with them. And they all stand good shots of raising their value to that point. So, you know, worth a roster spot. You got any other news for us, sir?
Yeah, so it looks like the 49er quarterback job is settled. And it also looks like Trey Lance is not winning the backup job, or is not ahead for the backup job.
Yeah.
It looks like Sam Darnold is in that position. Look, I think it was fine to buy low on Lance. I bought some shares early this offseason.
Yep.
For second round picks, like a second round pick. And I don't have a problem with that, right? Like still in hindsight, there. But I think you're not buying now, and I think part of why it was okay to do that now is I'd consider selling back for a second round pick now. Like he's not. He doesn't look like he's going to play, and we so rarely see quarterbacks play well with second teams.
Oh, yeah.
When was the last time?
Tannehill,
Mariota
did okay for a minute. For like a minute.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Tannehill was traded in good.
Like when was a guy who? But also
Aaron Rodgers.
Like,
that doesn't really count. No, I think Tannehill's the best example we've had in modern times, where he really didn't pan out for his team and then moved on. But even then, he had like what, a 4,000-yard season at least once in Miami, right? So yeah, it's right. like for what you're saying though, like a young guy who just didn't hit in any way and then move on, who's come back and actually had success. I mean, can't even think of one.
Trubisky had these are the kinds of guys who we see.
Gino.
Right? Baker, right? Baker is
hopefully Baker, yeah.
Like
we don't
maybe
even know.
Baker this year, right? But like Baker
started for like 3 years, right? So I don't even know if that qualifies.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of thing. Like,
I don't know. I don't want to waste time with
like
it.
Just,
yeah,
but
he
you know what I'm saying.
Though. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right? Like I don't know. I don't know what the parallel case here is.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Sam Darnold, is he worth a roster spot in your?
Conceivably, I mean, like if you're rostering handcuffs,
yeah,
right, like surely Purdy's reconstructed elbow is a target, and those good weapons is a target you'd be interested in, right? I think if you're targeting naked handcuffing other people's quarterbacks, I'm interested in Darnold if you're that kind of league. I think we're collectively a little low on Purdy. He should be ahead of. He should no longer be trading significantly behind Jordan Love, Sam Howell, and Desmond Ridder. And I think he should be at least ahead of Howell and Ridder and maybe ahead of Love. Just because, like, we saw a 7-game sample of him being very good. And, like, that's 7 games is not enough.
A lot. Oh, yeah. The offense is loaded. So, I mean, there's plenty of talent around. There's plenty of reasons for him to be successful. Yeah.
7 games is not enough that he can't still turn back into a pumpkin.
I just expect him to crash back to earth like any time. I don't know. I think that's a lot of people's fears for him. But don't you have to feel better about that sample than the no sample you've seen of Sam Howell or Jordan Love? Jordan Love has no sample and a good pedigree. Sam Howell has no sample and no pedigree. Yeah.
So. Anyway, to me, I think we're collectively trading a little low.
Love or Purdy? I mean, that's a good question you raised right there. I don't know. I think I'd rather have Love, but I don't think Purdy's wrong by any means. How'd they
Yeah,
get drafted in
I
our
think I'd
board?
rather have Purdy
Hmm.
right now.
Really? Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's you know,
They went three picks apart in this draft we did.
right. They could both go to a third round startup pick next year. They could both be worth nothing next year,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, having I think Purdy has the safer floor in that he um, looked like he was good, and his team has every possibility to stay away from the top of the draft. That's there's my thing. All right. So there's the news.
There's the news. All right, so we did this draft here, this multiple first Dynasty Football League draft. We did 30 rounds with some of our listeners, and thank you so much for joining us, friends. Here, we're gonna be talking about the different teams in this league and how everyone did, how their strategies unfolded, the picks they made along the way. We're gonna go team by team here. We're gonna talk about all different 12 rosters, in no particular order, but Greg and I's teams are gonna be last. But thanks for tuning in here. We're gonna be breaking down this draft that we did. I'm going first here. I'm gonna go and start you off with Mr. Cole World's draft. So he was picking from the 1.4 seat in our draft selection here. Yeah, so Mr. Cole traded out of his first round pick. He traded with Greg, the Velociraptor. And let's take a look at the way his roster landed before we talk about the trade. So we got Geno Smith, James Conner, David Montgomery, T. Higgins, Geno, London, Amari Cooper, Jackson Smith-Njigba, really wide receiver heavy, really awkward at quarterback with Geno, Russ, and Derek Carr. Running backs, yeah, Connor, Montgomery, and then not a whole lot of tight end with Taysom Hill and Zach Ertz. But traded out of his first round pick, he swapped with Greg. He swapped his 1.4 and he got a 210, a 310, and a 4.3 and a 24 first. He gave away 2 middle round picks, his 8.4 and his 10.4 back to do that, and his future second. So he added a first there, and he made a few other trades along the way. He tried to execute the MFDF house strategy we do, and I don't mean to say tried. He did it. He did a really good job of it, I think.
Yeah.
Took a big bite at wide receiver, and then
which is what you want to do here, right?
You got a ton of picks.
You want to move back. Yes. You want to move back, get those future picks and those young wide receivers. Smith, London, Higgins, like that's Smith and Jigba. That's like exactly how you want to do the build once you've started making that move to move back. Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, the Johnson pick was a little early for me. I mean, he made some sketchy picks, but he just had so many, and I loved his trades. I liked his trades more than his selections after a certain point. Like, I really like this wide receiver bite he did here in the fourth. This is too high for QJ for me, and I'm pretty high on him. Geno might be his only quarterback that has any longevity to him, which is weird to say, but probably true. But he's got the ton of picks, so he's going to be all right. He's trying to be competitive on the front end, which I say you can do, and I do believe that. But like
he's done that to me.
Yeah, he has done it. But the ceiling here on his running backs is really low. But that's what you can expect when you're putting it together this way.
Yeah, but what he's going to have to do is be good at shuffling and picking matchups between Geno, Russ, Carr, Garoppolo, and then he's got the Trey Lance and Sam Darnold darts. So he has an opportunity to get to overperform at quarterback by playing matchups because he's got so many of them. And if he's good at that and the wide receivers come through, he could be competitive with the 4 firsts and the 5 seconds next year, which is again the MFDF strategy. I think we both liked this.
Yeah, I do like it. I like it a lot. I do. It's just it's interesting. I love seeing other people do it that aren't me because you see all the different ways they do it, and it's cool. But picks I didn't like were James Conner at the 10.1 and Trey Lance at the 11.5. I think there was just plenty of other good picks on the board there. And my favorite pick is Khalil Herbert at 12.4, who I was genuinely waiting on 2 selections later. But Herbert gives him a lot more upside at running back in my mind. I like Khalil a lot. But I'll give him an A. All around A here. Good job, Cole. You executed it well, and you're pretty much set up for the long term.
I had this one rated as an A-. I thought this was one of the better drafts out there. Okay, next up, I had Team NRED. Team NRED 84. Key assets for NRED. Anthony Richardson and Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Chubb, Henry, and Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, and 3 2024 first-round picks. So he is, again, doing a lot of the multiple firsts strategy. Now, one thing I liked here is that I think he got some young assets at quarterback. He got 3 firsts. He didn't get the 4 firsts that we saw
Cole.
with Cole,
Yeah.
but he did get. But he got some young assets, some key young quarterback assets with that. Now, I think that the aging running backs can be replaced with young running backs through those picks. That's like something we can do to compete now. But my only gripe with this is that there are too many assets, specifically Henry, Lockett, Chubb, and Stafford, on a team that probably can't compete at quarterback yet. Like Anthony Richardson needs to be good right now for this team to compete now. And if Anthony Richardson is bad, then you're going to wonder why Henry, Lockett, and Chubb are on this team instead of, let's say, much younger assets at those similar positions who maybe don't have as much short-term value, but might have more 2024 value. That's my only gripe here. I gave this roster a B+. This was a very nice build for me.
Yeah, I like it. I gave it a B as well. Just a straight B for me. But we talked about some of his picks in our previous video. But this is well executed competitive team. A little more risk at quarterback than I like, but you're doing great here. Yeah. All right. Next up is the 101 position, Mr. Deke Ross. Let me get his roster pulled up here. Is my head still in the way? Yeah, it is. All right, we're going over here. There we go. So we got Mr. Deke Ross with Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Evan Ingram, oh boy, Tua Tagovailoa, and Kirk Cousins. That's pretty much the key assets here for Mr. Deke Ross. Not a whole lot in the taxi, and we're missing the first round pick in 2024 in the first and second round. So D here was very aggressive. He traded up a couple times. He traded up from his 312 to get Tua, and he made a couple deals here and traded out his whole middle. Only made one selection between the 8-10 and the 16-1. So 8 rounds, he only made one pick. It was Mike Evans. So what you're seeing here is a very top-heavy roster that doesn't have any futures. And he did pretty well with it, though, and I think a lot of that speaks to just making good selections. I mean, the picks he made, he picked well. But he made some questionable trades for my taste, and was in an advantageous position in the 101 spot. So he's gonna be strong no matter what for the most part. Yeah. I don't like having no picks. Gives you like some uncertainty when you talk about Tua and Cousins maybe being uncertain at quarterback on the long term. He likes Tua a lot more than I do, and that's fair. But you just never know what you're getting into. This team should be competitive, but 1 or 2 injuries could derail this whole season. I gave this a C.
Yeah, I mean, it's a roster that has a ceiling for this year, but it's old and thin and doesn't have picks.
Yeah.
So like it could win this year, and then and if you win early and you have Patrick Mahomes, then you're like playing with house money, right? So that's on the table for him. I gave him a C+, a little better because of that. I think that I can see the way to an early title, but man, like some of these guys are going to get real old in 1 year. You know, like Marvin Jones in a starting lineup spot, Mike Evans, Joe Mixon, Cooper Kupp. That's a real old group, and I don't love what's coming behind, and there's no picks. So, you know, and it's one thing to have no picks, but it's another thing to have no picks and no young players with a good chance to appreciate over the next year, right? And I think that's a little bit of a worry here for me for Deke Ross. So there you go.
All right, yeah. It's I just want to say, just be patient from the 101 spot. I think you can be a little more patient in general drafting up there. I mean, to all of our listeners, you want to be making moves and doing stuff, but let people fall into your lap. And it's tough drafting from the corners. I don't enjoy it. The 12 and the 1, they're hard spots to draft from. So don't feel bad if it's challenging.
So we're coming to one of our first of a few where we had a bit of a disagreement. This is Akers 23. So the key assets here for Akers 23 are quarterbacks Deshaun Watson and Brock Purdy, running backs Bijan Robinson, Brees Hall, Najee Harris, Isaiah Pacheco, and then we got George Kittle over at tight end, right? So this has a very potentially star-heavy group, and it is a very running back-heavy group. By the way, I was shocked. I thought Cam Akers came on to being the best available player, and he came on the clock and didn't take him. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, for this team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Akers 23 is his name. Cam Akers just sat perfect, and it didn't come. But so it's not hard to tell a story of how this team wins the inaugural title, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's Watson rebounds, Purdy repeats his high-end quarterback 2 performance of last year, and the elite running back smash, right? That's it. That's boom. He's got a shot to do everything. However, I think this wide receiver room is a bit of an albatross here. Pickens, Mooney, Beckham, Richie James, Terrace Marshall, Elijah Moore, right? Like, I just think there's a chance that there's nothing in it there.
Yeah.
Right. There's a chance that it's barren, and I also think there's a chance that Watson doesn't come back real well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's.
I think we both feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and if either of those goes bad, then you could have a team that's built around running backs and doesn't win now. And that's a bad combination. And that's why I gave this only a B, which is not a terrible grade. But I think that combination of worries about Watson and worries about the wide receiver position, and I don't love to be so running back heavy, I think weighed it down a little bit. You like this one more, right?
Yeah, I do. I like pretty much all the selections he made along the way. Let me get my face out of the way so we can look at his board. But like, I like Bijan at the 112 there. The only one I don't really love is the Watson at 212 or 22. I probably would have went a Dak or a Richardson. But like, the Brees Hall pick was made before Dalvin Cook signed, so I don't hate that. I don't know. Andrews probably better there, at least especially now in hindsight. But I like Najee, Kittle, Pickens. I mean, I'm down for all these picks for the most part. And I like the upside here. He kept his futures. Akers and another couple of these friends here, they made no trades, so I like to call that a column of truth. It's just one column all the way down. These are the guys I'm taking with all my given picks, and I think he did well with that. I've drafted Akers a few times, and he usually does. But I give him an A- around. This could be a championship. If you win a title, if you win your first title ever, and you're good for the rest of the time. The whole rest of the league, you're all good. Like, you have no pressure. You just do whatever you want for that. And this team definitely could do that.
Yeah, Pickens, Mooney, Beckham as my starting receivers scares me a lot for that.
I like his upside of his other guys, though. I mean, I'm a big Kadarius Toney guy. Elijah Moore. There's not a lot here. He probably needs to make a move.
Yeah, I know. So you found some guys in Toney and Downs where I'm below market.
Mm-hmm.
So like I guess that's where we've got.
No, he might. I mean, I don't know. A lot of these teams could be one trade away, and that's what I love about doing this. So, all right. We got Mr. Murderleg is next up.
There's another column of truth.
Column of truth, all the way down, and I like this one a good bit here. Let me get my face here. Change this thing. There we go. All right. So we see from Murderleg, key players at quarterback: Joe Burrow. Oh man, why do I keep doing that? There we go. Joe Burrow, Daniel Jones at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins at the RB position, wide receivers A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, D.J. Moore, Mike Williams, and then a triple rookie tight end setup of Kincaid, Mayer, and Musgrave that I actually really, really like. This is a good team. This is another really good column. I mean, you just draft straight down a list. You do this is good. I love the Jonathan Taylor pickup in the third round. It could be the best pick of the draft at 3.8. I mean, it could be a league-winning pick from there with his upside. I'm not a big fan of Daniel Jones in the fourth. Feel like that was kind of like a reach for a quarterback because he didn't have one yet, and I don't blame him. But really just great draft down the list here. Let me check my notes. This team could be another championship winner right here with the Taylor, with the Burrow, the AJ Brown. All you have to do is see a pretty good season from one of these rookie tight ends, um, and yeah, you could have the inaugural champion. I gave this team an A overall. Like this is a perfect column, perfect, perfect, but really well done. I don't like Mike Williams in the 10th round. I think you should have taken Ritter there. Or even if I had to go wide receiver, I might have went with like a Lockett or an Evans. If you're going to take a veteran receiver, I like that more. And I really like the Claypool DJ Moore coverage he has here. He took Claypool in the 19th round, so just as a handcuff or a bet against. Just a all around good job, Murder Leg. I think you're definitely in the playoffs and could totally win a title.
Yeah, I give this one a B plus. Mm-hmm. I'm not as into the Jonathan Taylor buy as you are. I know that I get the reasons. I just that one scares me a little bit, right? Like I feel like we could have problems this year, and we could have a holdout next year.
Sure.
But I like the overall build of this team pretty well. It's a little thin for my tastes at the wide receiver position, but the rest of it I do like. I think you've convinced me, and maybe I was a little low, and maybe this is more of an A- roster than a B+. I like that. Good.
Yeah, it's that tight end points that he's missing because these guys are young. Like, that's what it is, right? So like if this was, I don't know, Kittle or Hockenson instead of Daniel Jones, and then like Ritter instead of Mike Williams, like there was just a couple little wrinkles you could have better. You could have really streamlined like A+ type deal. But I think it was executed good, very well.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at another team.
All right, yeah, we're up next. You got it, man. You're taking a look at Widowmaker. Yo, Greg, you muted out, man. Can you hear me? Your mic cut out, bro.
Oh.
There you go. You're back. Sorry. All right, so you're taking a look at... Nope, you're gone again. Right. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
So, key assets are Lamar Jackson, Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, Ken Walker, Pierce, Swift, and then Hockenson, Goddard, and Freiermuth. And to me, like he's short first and second round picks last year, and this team isn't good enough to be short first and second round picks next year. I think this is a heavy bet on mid-tier tight ends in Hockenson, Goddard, and Muth, who feel like, to me, a little bit more like floor plays than ceiling plays. And that, I think, is the worry. We'll see how that plays out, right? If those guys end up being a positional advantage across tight end and then also across flex, then maybe that's then maybe that works a little bit better. But we'll see. I do think like Walker and Pierce and Swift are fragile assets, and maybe there's not quite enough for having not the picks. I do think if Kyler gets healthy quickly, that fixes a lot of these things. There's some upside there with the quarterback position if Kyler gets healthy. I mean, like if Kyler gets healthy and Bryce Young hits, he has the potential to have one of the best quarterback rooms in 12 months. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good. There's a bit kind of a big hole at wide receiver for me with this team. Rondale Moore, Romeo Doubs are both starting wide receivers here as it runs right now. The running back room is very deep. The wide receiver room is very thin. And that's how so to my assessment, that's a little bit troubling. I gave it a B minus overall.
Yeah,
What
I
did you
agreed
think?
with you on the B minus. Same thing. This reminds me of me drafting when I watched Widow's draft here in places where I couldn't really it didn't come together, but you're just grabbing value with every pick. Like you're just constantly trying to take value, but it doesn't really coalesce. And the same deal with your trades. Like the couple trades he made were good for him, and most of his picks are values on the board, but it just doesn't. I don't really see a cohesive team here for the most part. Like I do think a lot of these tight ends kind of fell a little bit given the settings, so he kept taking them. I think this team needs to keep trading, and this will come together. This
Yes.
is incomplete to my mind. You can move one of these tight ends for a wide receiver two type, and maybe sell a quarterback and get some another wide receiver and maybe a future back. Like all of a sudden this looks really good, I think, but you're not
Yeah.
there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gave him a B minus also.
Very good.
All right. Moving on to the next team here, we're going to take a look at Mr. Take Dat with You. I love that name. Take that with you. we got we got Trevor Lawrence and Justin Jefferson highlighting this roster that traded up into the first round. Also have Josh Jacobs and Zach Charbonnet at the running back position. Wide receivers, the aforementioned JJ, Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, Gabe Davis, Sky Moore. Tight ends, a couple value selections in Gerald Everett and Juwan Johnson. And no futures in the first 3 rounds of the 24 draft. Yeah, so this is my trade partner. I traded out of the first round. Stash X did with Mr. Take That With You. I gave him my 1.6 where he got his Lawrence, and he gave me his 2, his 4, and his 24 first. So I'm rooting against him all year long because I own his first round pick. Let's go. And I think we opened the season against each other as well, which you got to love that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bit of a hero RB type approach with Josh Jacobs as the only running back
Yes.
taken in the first 8 rounds of the draft. That's a good one to get if you're going to do this because you got him at a
Yes.
value and he's got the upside. Now, what I would have liked to have seen is some type of handcuff along the way. I mean, maybe it's Zamir White or whoever you want, but I would have definitely invested in another Vegas running back if I'm this owner. But in the later rounds, I like Charbonnet as the second RB you got there.
Yes.
I love this is fun for me too. So we're picking next to each other at the 6-7 spot, and in the 6th round, I take Deebo Samuel at the 6.6, and takes Brandon Ayuk at the 6.7 immediately after me. So this is a throw down the gauntlet selection. We're absolutely at war. Not only do I have his 1, we have competing wide receivers on the same team just selected back to back. This is great. We're going to be tracking this, he and I. So I'm curious to see how this goes. Who's going to score more points between Deebo and Brandon Ayuk? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I also really liked adding Elijah Mitchell and Davis Price. It's like there's a real upside bet there. I thought that was a neat piece of work.
Yeah,
Those guys I like having together.
It's that roster construction that we love. When you get like what Cole did with the 2 49ers backup QBs. It was funny it's still the Niners. But I really like most of the selections made throughout the draft. There's only one that sticks out as a bad one to me, which is Howell at 10.7. He said I sniped Ritter at 10.6. So maybe this was like a rushed pick or a tilted pick or whatever. I probably wouldn't take Hall here, especially with like Stafford and Tannehill and some of these other vet quarterbacks on the board. But it's an upside play, so I get it.
But you notice nothing comes back there, right?
Nothing. These guys don't hit him back. Yeah, maybe he was hoping they would.
I don't hate taking.
What are you saying?
Yeah. Well, I don't hate taking Howell over those guys. Like he's got to take. I guess he thought he had to take somebody there, right? So.
Well, I'm happy I got Ritter, and then he had to make some tough decision.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
But ultimately, like I just like the value of his whole draft board. I like what he did here. Davis and Sky Moore as post-hype breakouts. Mitchell in 13th round. These teen round tight ends in a 2 tight end premium league that are starters. I mean, that's great. That's what I completely whiffed on in my draft, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I love this Juwan Johnson at 15-6. Yep. I was going to take him, had to settle for Sutton, but I love this. This is the tight end 27 on our draft board. 27th tight end off the board who finished as the PPR tight end 15 last year. This guy's got another quarterback who loves to throw to the tight end, and he's just going to keep doing it. I like Jawan Johnson. I'm sad I missed him here. I was targeting him and whiffed. But that paired with Gerald Everett is a great situation at value for the manager here. I think we're looking at like if he can be the one to hit on a free agent RB type deal, then you could have a championship type roster here.
Yep. Or a Ken Walker injury.
Sure. Yep. But
right?
this is
Charbonnet has that ceiling.
If I'm trading away one of my firsts like he did here, this is what I'm looking to have. Something like this. So I gave this a B+.
Very good. All right, Fantasy Football Nomad coming up next.
Oh, yeah, let's take a look at it.
So, key assets here, Ramondre, Cam Akers, and then look at that wide receiver room. Chase, Lamb, Adams, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, and look at that tight end room. Andrews, Pitts, Darren Waller, right? But to me, this is a weird build. So the wide receivers and tight ends just scream league winner. But the quarterback room is Ryan Tannehill, Jameis Winston, Mike White, Cooper Rush, Davis Mills. And if he gets any source of adequate quarterback and Superflex play, he could win it all. But he really could be taking zeros at quarterback by Thanksgiving, right? Like there's no guarantee that Ryan Tannehill is serviceable or keeps his job or stays healthy. He doesn't even have that one quarterback cuffed, right? Like Ryan Tannehill could sprain an ankle and miss a month, and he's taking zeros for a month. And in that sinks season,
it might take the rest of his career if it happened to Tannehill, and one of these other guys steps up and takes the job. Yeah,
right. And he could go 0-3, and then that's the end of his season.
Yep.
Right, because even if Tannehill comes right back, if it causes him to miss the playoffs, then all of a sudden you're looking at a team that like doesn't have quarterbacks going forward either, right? And doesn't have a first round pick next year. So I'm willing to bet against this roster because I think the quarterback room is going to be too much problem. At the same time, you can see what he's doing. He's fixing tight end instead, right? He invested there, tight end and receiver. So, I gave this a D. I think the quarterback room needs this to be no better than a D. But there's other things here like Chase Lamb on top of your wide receiver room that are pretty great. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I give him a C. I'm a little bit higher on it. I like this only because again, like you're a trade away from really putting some together. Like Widow has those extra QBs, and maybe you can trade one of your pieces away to get
one of your what?
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
A tight end back to him, so we could have you. The teams don't link up to trade, I guess, that well. But like, if you can find a deal, this could be something. But it's like his draft as well. But yeah, I give him a C. It should age okay, so I like that too. I like being safe for receiver, on the top of my receiver. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is pretty good. But I just think that there is a chance that this could be many years of the quarterbacks making everything else not matter.
Yeah. Yep. If you're stuck there, it sucks. It really does. I mean, he took a bunch of shots at QB later, but yeah, we'll have to see how it goes.
Right.
All right, moving on here. Next up, we got Lightly Chilled, the fantasy football gods. So Lightly Chilled was drafted from the 1.12 position. He has Justin Fields, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, key assets right there, along with Tony Pollard and Aaron Rodgers. Lightly was very aggressive at the start of the draft, traded up, and that's the theme of his team is this trade up that he made. He traded, Mr. Lightly Chilled did, let me get it brought up here, his 4th round pick, 6th round pick, 8th round pick, and 2024 first round pick in order to go get the 110 to take Justin Fields. He made a 4-for-1 deal in the first round of his startup. That is tough, and I feel bad for Lightly Chilled because he did that. I don't like that trade for him at all. I wanted him to see him get a few more like later round selections back, kind of like how Greg did in his deal. So I like the picks Lightly Chilled made, and I think he's a good drafter, and that's why I want to see him get more picks back, because you can do damage with those later round picks and fill yourself back out after being, kind of taking your middle away here, I think. A lot of upside with his top end talent at each of the big positions, but I mean, one injury to CMC or Fields, and I think his team goes to nothing. I'm struggling with Lightly Chilled's build, and I'm disappointed because I think he could do a lot better. I gave him a C minus.
Yeah, he's got some. I gave him a B minus. I believe I gave him a B minus.
You gave him a B minus, yeah.
So I mean, there are some things to really like about this game, right? Like, it's not that hard for me to imagine him having like the quarterback one, the running back one, and the wide receiver one, and the tight end one.
Sure. Yeah, it could, and then you're huge, but like if you whiff on, if you don't hit all that upside, and one of the guys gets hurt, it's just a struggle. Yeah. But like the picks are pretty good. I mean, Rodgers in 7th is good. Ballard there, Hill.
I'm pretty anti-Rodgers this year. I actually think Rodgers may be falling apart.
Okay.
I don't believe. I don't believe that is. I am. He can go off on somebody else's team.
So you buying Zach Wilson?
No. No.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
But yeah, but I am in on Pollard and McCaffrey and Tyreek and Kelsey. Like, I think that the whole thing is really great. Mm-hmm. So I just think that there's more opportunity to win right now with this team than almost anybody else in the league.
Yeah.
I think the year one ceiling is excellent. And if he gets even near the year one ceiling, he won't regret the picks he gave up too much. And if Justin Fields doesn't fall apart, it's okay not to, like, at least you have a stud number one quarterback. And then even if Rodgers is old, you can make it back. I like this. I like this team reasonably well, but like you see where if it doesn't get home year one, it's going to be old very quickly.
It's a title favorite as you enter the season, but it's something that could fall apart pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right, and so our last team before we get to our own team, Unexpected Parole. Key assets here are Josh Allen and Jared Goff, Austin Eckler with Aaron Jones and Miles Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra, Christian Watson, Jahan Dotson with Chig Okonkwo at tight end. This is one of my favorite balanced bills in the whole draft.
Absolutely.
Yep. I think the tight end room is potentially very troubling with wide variance possible for his best guys are Chig, Likely, and Woods. Like there's a decent chance that like none of those guys are worth much this year. And that is a terrible hole. But there are a few of us with that potential, right?
Oh, yeah.
But he has managed to be solid with a nice mix of win now and younger asset at all the other three positions. And he still has his 2024 picks. This is a well-done draft. I gave it an A-.
Yeah, man, it's a good team. It's really safe. It's got a high floor. It's got a good ceiling to it. It's going to age well. I mean, it's good. This is just really well done. Thumbs up. Gave it a B+. Yeah.
Yeah, and then now yours.
All right, man.
So
yeah, you want to go ahead.
Yeah. So your team, key assets here: Dak, Stroud, and Ritter at quarterback, Etienne and Javonte at running back, Olave, DK, Debo, Godwin at receiver. I think that's terrific. And you've got a pair of 2024 firsts. So you're the third person with multiple firsts. We've got 4, 3, and 2. So 9 firsts between three teams, right? I think that's very good. I said your roster is full of unsexy value.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
There are lots of good, not great guys at very good prices. Tight end, again, like a couple of teams, is potentially a disaster. I mean, I think like what if Zach Ertz comes back?
I'm trying to get Zach Ertz right now.
Right. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Sending offers for him.
Because it's McBride, Ferguson, and like you don't even really have a third option there. But But I really do think that you have a team that has an outside chance of winning the inaugural title. Like, I can talk myself into it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got the multiple firsts, and your team has some crucial young assets that I think could age well, like Stroud, Olave, DK, etc. Right? So
Yeah, Ferguson.
there's that.
I'm loving more Ferguson every day. I'm trying to buy him everywhere I can right now.
My downside
Yeah.
with this is that I think there are a lot of players who have risky or fragile value here, right? Like Ritter, ETN. I think there's a decent chance that Tank Bigsby is the better running back there.
Sure.
To be honest,
Yeah.
I know you actually do have Tank Bigsby too.
I do. Yeah.
But
because I think that's I agree with you. It could be true, so I made sure to get Tank Bigsby.
Javonte, DK.
Yeah.
I think there's a decent chance DK is the wide receiver 3 by the end of the year over there in Seattle. Debo, Godwin, Madison, like those are all guys who have the potential to be worth a lot less in 12 months. Now, several of them also have the potential to be worth a lot more, right? I think Godwin is at a bit of a turning point in his career, right? Debo too, right? Like, can those guys have a second really big year?
Yeah.
Right. Javonte and ETN could like reestablish themselves as top 5 running backs, or they could go down in value as like all of a sudden, hey, we're nearing free agency and like running backs, right? So there's a lot. Ritter could lose his job or secure his job. So there's a lot of these guys who have ceiling floor variance in terms of value. But still, I think it's a good roster to have while having a bonus pick. And I think this is just generally good work. I gave you a B+.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. That was all kinds of nice words. Yeah. I did punt tight end. I missed it. I missed tight end too much. That's my big regret from the draft. But yeah, it was interesting for sure. All right, so now I get to review your team, Greg. Are you excited about that?
I am.
All right.
I haven't even looked.
Oh, you didn't even look at our document.
I specifically did not look at your review in my document.
That's funny. I was like really nervous when I was typing it. I was like, oh man, he's staring. He's reading.
I'm not looking. No, I didn't at all.
Yeah.
Averted my gaze.
All right, so we got the Velociraptors multiple first Dynasty Football League of Record startup draft roster here. We got key players of Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert at the quarterbacks. We got Jerry Jeudy, Jordan Addison, Alvin Kamara, Treylon Burks, Sam Laporta, Greg Dulcich, Zay Flowers, Brian Robinson, all these key players rounding out the starting roster here. So I love this squad. This is just a great looking dynasty roster top to bottom. I feel like I'm looking through my series of leagues and I'm just looking at another team that I own because I like this so much. This is just a really well balanced approach. You made the trade with Cole World. We talked about the one side of it. So for your side to trade up and do that and trade up into that elite tier of quarterback and pick up a second one is pretty much always worth it in Superflex. It's hard for it ever to be bad for you. You lost your future 1 and you traded it down to a future 2, but otherwise the entire cost you paid was immediate. You paid the most upfront cost possible to just get it done. Your second, third, and fourth round pick, and you got stuff back while you did it. So I really like that a lot. I would have loved to have seen like keep one of these because you're missing an A-lister at wide receiver, and I think you see that.
Yes.
And that I think that could really put you over the hump if it had happened. Like if you had a T. Higgins or even DK, any of these guys from the third, fourth round, and I would have really liked to have seen that for you. But
I need one of these guys, Jeudy, Addison, Burks, or Flowers.
It should become it
to do that for me, right?
Yes.
That's how I get there quickly.
Yeah. The Sam Laporta pick in the 8th round, I remember when you made it, I was thinking, that seems early, but now as I look back at the board and the tight end landscape, I think it's actually great. The Dulcich pick scares me a little bit. I've cooled on him a lot since the Troutman got announced as the starter. That stinks for him. I'm so sad for Dulcich, and I think Laporta and Conklin are your starting tight ends by the end of the season. You're going to age really well with these receivers. I love and the quarterback and you're going to age great. I like this floor of RB you've instilled with these 3 picks here of White, Kamara, and Robinson. That's going to carry a lot of points forward. You're going to be competitive. I definitely see you being in the playoff hunt. I don't know if this is a championship team, but it totally could be with the quarterback upside. I just like this all over the place. I gave it a B+.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I love the multiple first strategy, but I think like the one exception to that for me is like just go get those two quarterbacks, young elite quarterbacks with the supermax style contracts, right? Like
Yeah,
those
yeah.
contract commitments that Hurts and Herbert both got. Just lock in the value of your assets, right? And so if neither one of them suffers an injury this year, and they both give me a full season, I should be a competitive team almost no matter what else I'm putting out there, right? That's to where I start.
Another thing is overall draft strategy. Your philosophy as you approach the board not only changes from year to year, but it changes from seat to seat, right? So the trade back strategy that I like to preach in this channel is really best executed from like one of the last 4 or 5 seats
Yeah, I think
because
so.
you're not getting one of those elite quarterbacks. You have to come up with another plan, and that's the alternative. So anytime you can get one elite QB, that's great. You get the second one, that's even better. Yeah, and this year specifically with these 6 that we see, these 6 guys right at the top, like to get 2 of those is great for. Like, in years past, it was maybe 2 guys. It was like maybe Mahomes and Allen, and there was Lamar, but you didn't feel as good about Lamar, right? And there was. So this year with that big chunk of them, with 6 guys that we love, it's pretty easy to snag 2 to go up there and do that. So, for the 24 season, I love this approach to the draft, or the 23 season, excuse me.
Yeah, I really think a big thing that made my draft was Rachaad White, Alvin Kamara getting to me very late.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got to running back real late, and I ended up okay. I think you're right. Dulcich is a worrisome piece.
I'm so scared
at this
for him
point.
right now. I hate admitting it, but it's true. I just, yeah.
Yeah. No, I do think he may end up being the slot receiver actually. Like,
yeah,
a lot. They need something like that, or they need something like that, and maybe he can fill that. But like, yeah, I could have. I mean, what could I have done though? Like Dalton Schultz, Luke Musgrave.
I don't think it's a bad pick.
There wasn't a lot there.
Just worried about the player. That's all. This guy I have a lot of. I liked for a long time. It's just. What could you have done? I don't know. I think Ferguson is just a massive steal. I mean, I've really gotten so high on Ferguson, so maybe take him 4 rounds ahead of me.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's where I'm at. I do like the wide receiver group and the on top of the quarterbacks, and I think I got a little bit lucky at running back.
Yeah, and you could totally win a title. I mean, the quarterbacks could just carry you to a championship. I mean, it's so easy to see these 2 dudes just have awesome 3-game stretches at the same time with just modest production from the rest of your team, and you just keep winning games. So that could totally happen.
Yeah, I also think Alvin Kamara is one of the most undervalued assets right now. Like, to me, that the 3-game suspension that came in after I drafted him, like, because I was thinking 3 to 6.
Yeah.
And getting only 3, I think he's a little cheap right now.
Sure. Yeah. So. It's a without your first and this kind of uncertainty at wide receiver tight end combo, I mean, it could get weird. You might miss the playoffs and not have your own pick, and that sucks when that happens. So that's some percentage of the reality here, and that's what brought me to my original point of like, boy, if you'd have just gotten one more elite receiver, it could really drastically change your fates. So
I agree.
Yep. Chris Olave is available. Let's work it out. No, I'm just kidding. All right, guys. So that's all 12 teams. Thank you for spending time with us today. Thank you for tuning in. Other owners in this league, thanks for drafting with us. Like, subscribe, comment. Tell us who your favorite team was. Tell us the picks you liked, the picks you didn't. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night, friends and family.